morning, guys. It is Saturday the 17th of February, and I just thought today I would do something a little bit different. I've never done a stitch with me before. I don't know quite how this is going to look or it's going to work. I don't know how good the camera angle is going to be. I'm not in my usual stitching spot. I normally sit on the sofa in front of the TV and stitch, where today I'm kind of in one of my other rooms, just purely because of noise reasons. The birds are in the living room, so obviously trying to get the camera in as well would have probably been nigh on impossible. So what I thought I'd do is just try this setup, see how we go, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, and you have any other suggestions as to what I can do, I will give it a go. Now I've put the camera to my left because I'm stitching on one of my quantum frames, and I usually have my right hand, which is here, on top, and although it probably would have looked a bit better from the other side, I'm just acutely aware that if I'd have put it there you wouldn't have seen anything, so it's not going to be good. So I thought I'd give this a try and we'll see. So you've not seen this project for a little while. This is my Heaven and Earth designs. It's my Steam Heart by Cris Ortega. So I'll put in a picture of what she'll look like when she's finished. So as you can see, I am stitching a whole host of 310, which is DMC black, which is the highlight, or the low light rather, the shadow actually underneath her goggles on her hair. So I thought, well, if I'm going to be stitching a load of 310, I'm not going to have to use a massive amount of brain power to count this. I will use this as the opportunity to do the stitch along, bit of a catch up, and then I thought I'd do a couple of tags as well while I'm here that I've downloaded off Trisha, the 3 Hour Stitchers blog. So she keeps a track of everybody on FlossTube who's done tags, obviously gives those individuals credit. So I thought, well, I'll do a couple of them while we are here and while we're chatting. So yeah, I mean, this morning, to be honest, I was planning, because as you know, I've been running and sort of building up my running ability in time to be able to run at 5k. So I told you a few uploads ago that I was doing the Couch to 5k, which is an NHS public health initiative in the UK to try and get people more healthy and off the couch and doing things from a physical perspective. So I thought, right, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. So I was successful in that and have built myself up to a level where I can run for 5k. Reasonable pace. So I've joined the local park runs, and I don't know if any of you know about park runs. This is like a worldwide initiative. So every Saturday morning at 9 AM in your locality, I would imagine there'll be a park run. So if you Google parkrun.org, they'll bring up a website which has everything. If you've got a park run in your locality, it'll be on there, and you just kind of go into the search and find feature, and there's anything local to you, it'll pop up. So I went on, I've registered, printed off all of my details last night, and I was going to actually go and do it this morning, but oh gosh, Friday nights and Saturday mornings are just the worst time for me. I'm just always exhausted after work. I think anybody who works full time during the week, like, my hours are so unpredictable as well. I mean, I'm contracted to work 35 hours, but I never just work that. I could do in my job 35 hours in 2.5 days. So I always end up working 50, 60, 70 hours a week just because of the nature of what my job is. Obviously, we don't get overtime or paid any more for that. It's just part of the role. So, you know, come Friday, my usual routine is to come in, order takeaway food, go and get a bath, and I usually end up falling asleep in the bath. But I did sort of set my mind to the fact that this morning I would do the park run, so I got all my gym stuff ready so I could put them on this morning, you know, to get out and be there for 9 o'clock. I sort of got myself all prepped, went to bed really early last night with that in mind, and woke up this morning, the alarm went off at 7 AM and I could hear it was raining outside. And, you know, you just think, oh gosh, I'm just too tired to go. So I didn't, and I'm feeling really guilty, so I'm going to have to go out and do a run myself later on this evening and make up for that. But I wish it was a Sunday, and then I would have had a day of recovery and would be more likely to be able to get up at 9 a.m. following a week of early starts and late finishes. So such as it is, so I haven't done it. I'll go this evening, as I said, and do that. So in terms of my stitching style, I have told you this before, so I'm stitching this, it's 25 count even weave. What is it? Is it a, oh, it's not Lugana, it is a Lugana, 25 count Lugana. I'm stitching her 1/1 in DMC floss, so that's 1 thread per stitch. I am stitching the Randall Spangler's Train of Dreams, which hasn't seen any air since about March, April last year. I'm doing that 2/1 on 25 count, which is slightly challenging. It's not undoable, but you know, I do find stitching 1/1 on 25 count a lot easier. What can I say about it? In terms of my style, as you can see, I'm more of a cross-country kind of gal. I don't park. I have tried a bit of parking. I just can't cope with all of the threads hanging all over and, you know, becoming damaged and fraying, and it just doesn't sit well with me. I do like to sort of meander around the page, sort of get to a point that's suitable where the thread runs out, and then sort of work my way wherever I need to sort of complete that colour. So I'm just having a look and lining this up, so I've reached that little brown stitch there, so I'm just going to mark off on my PDF chart where I am. So I use Easy PDF, which is EZ PDF, to work my way through particularly the Heaven and Earth designs, just because I find it a lot easier than trying to work off paper charts. And then what I'm going to do here is just drop across one, and just to feather it, because obviously I'm going to do this whole block here, sort of this section, but what I don't want, and what for whatever reason my stitching does do this, the line pages or start and finish points where you can almost see where you've you finished a page and you get like a line down the page. I don't know whether it's something to do with my tension, because I know a lot of people stitch pages at a time and are completely fine with it, but for whatever reason my style of stitching or the tension just does not work with that at all. So yeah, I tend to try and feather as much as I can. I've done that here as well. I don't know whether you can see, whether or not it's zoomed in close enough, but where I've been stitching the black on this section, I've kind of feathered in ready, knowing that I will be picking up the next step. So all of this section here will be DMC 310 black, so you know, I've got a fair bit of it to go, so you can share the pain with me today, guys, I thought. So yeah, so this one, as I said, hasn't really seen very much work put into it over the last few months, but I was just looking at it and thought, you know what, I haven't used my quantum frames for a while. I've got a little bit lazy from that perspective, so I've been stitching a lot on the Q snaps. I think it's because I've been doing quite a few sort of smaller products, like my latest finish, my Story Keep Simply Meant to Be, was not large and went well on a Q snap, and obviously my Enchanted Christmas piece by Donna Glessinger again isn't massive, so you know, a Q snap works quite well with that. So I thought, well, do you know what, I'm going to get my quantum frame back out and do some, you know, work with it. So you know, the large piece lended itself to that. So, and I'm quite enjoying it. I mean, I do want to get some traction with this year, really. You know, I did talk about in a previous update, it would be good to get these 4 pages, I don't know whether you can see, over the other side finished. But I just thought now I just wanted to see her start to come to life a little bit with her face. Stitching a lot of that blue and grey background can get a bit tedious, so it's good to break it up a little bit, really. So that's my rationale for working on this piece today, plus with it being a good size block, it's ideal. So I thought while I was here, now we've discussed my purpose and some of my stitching style, that I might do a couple of tags for you. Never done a tag, so I thought I do like them as well, and I thought, right, you know what, I'll time while I'm doing this just to answer a few questions and, you know, I suppose get your point of view on some things as well. So the first tag is by Pam Reed, and she uploaded this quite a while ago, and her first question is, what is your favourite fabric? I don't know. I have to say, I do like the more even weave type of fabrics. So the likes of this, so Lagana, maybe a 22 count hardanger. I do like HAED as well. I mean, for full coverage, like my story keep and the Christmas ornament that I'm doing, that's stitched on 18 count HAED. So for things like that, I don't really mind the fact you can see the holes around it. Linen, I don't mind linen. Don't like linen for full coverage. As you know, I had my epic fail with my Darkness Falls, one of Maxine Gadd's pieces. That was a Heaven and Earth design. That was horrendous. I ended up tearing that fabric trying to frog some stitches out of it. It was just, I don't know whether it was just the quality of the linen or the linen itself. I don't know, but it was quite flimsy, a thin fabric without really any substance to it. I don't know what you call it. Is it, I don't know what you call fabric thickness or substantial fabric. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. But whatever it was just really hard to stitch on and keep the stitches neat, because that was a 25 count one and I was stitching it 2/2, which was absolutely fine. But you know, when I wanted to maybe stitch in a bit of her face and went over with one of the more pink shades, pink tones, it ended up looking a right mess. And I as I said, trying to frog it and split in and tear in one of the wefts of the fabric. So yeah, it's far from ideal. Not a good situation to be in, unfortunately. So yeah, I would say probably more the even weaves for that. I've not got into the realms of the likes of the hand-dyed fabrics yet. I will do, I've no doubt. I'm trying to resist the urge. The problem with me is I'll buy a fabric and end up trying to fit a pattern to it, which tends not to be the way I work. I tend to probably more choose a pattern first, but anyway, so yeah, I would say probably even weaves in answer to that question. And the next one is, do you use a hoop or a frame? Now, historically, I was a hoop girl, and I've got quite a few of them in my stash upstairs. And then it was only through FlossTube that I discovered the likes of the Q-snaps, which I have to say, in terms of keeping the fabric nice and taut with some good tension, are marvellous. They are an absolutely superb creation. So, yep, I would say now it's a mixture of Q-snaps, which I've probably used more of lately for the reasons I gave earlier, and my quantum frames, which again I'm working with now and provide, you know, a really, really good tension to work off. So yeah, frames, I would say, for that one. Okay, so do you use a stand or just hold your frame? Well, it's a mixture of both, to be fair. So, as you know, I've got the Monstrix stand, which is my kind of ride or die sort of stand, really. It's great for the quantum frames, because obviously it's made by the Omanique factory. Sorry, I've got a snag. I was wondering one of those would appear. And it's really got an excellent clamp to hold on to your Q-snaps as well. So I like either. So I like that. I'm also actually today using a necessaire stand, because there's a story behind that, which I will give you in my update. Basically, one of the ladies from the Scottish Stitching Retreat posted on the Facebook group that she was selling hers. So I got one for a reasonable price, because obviously, you know, from my past experience with needle needs, it's not been great in terms of being able to even get a millennium frame to stitch on, which is why I went down the quantum frames and then the Monstrix stand, because, you know, I did really try to get hold of a necessaire stand from them. So I'm using that today. It's fine. I mean, I don't think in terms of usability it's really that much different to the quantum frame. I think, the Monstrix stand, I think it's probably a little bit more elegant looking, because the Monstrix stand is quite a mechanical piece of kit. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But I don't mind either of them, to be honest. And then if I'm stitching a small piece like I was last night, I was finishing off one of my whips and I just had the frame in my hand, just sat under my craft light and watched a bit of TV while I did it. And so I like a mixture of both, really. It depends on my mood. Obviously last night I was particularly tired and just really couldn't be bothered to get the whole setup going, really. And so yeah, it was just something easy to do in hand last night, but obviously on the Q-snap still. So, what is your favourite time to stitch? Well, my stitching time is very limited because, as I told you, my work dominates everything that I do, unfortunately. So in terms of, it's more of opportunity rather than favourite. So really the only opportunity I get to stitch is probably between about 7:30 and 10 o'clock on an evening. So a couple of hours each evening would be about right by the time I get in from work. You know, if I want to do any keep fit or running, have some dinner, you know, get comfortable, spend some time with Daisy as well, you know, your evening's gone pretty much. So it's a couple of hours per week evening, and then I try and catch up a little bit on a weekend. So I'll probably maybe stitch for 4 hours each day on a weekend. Sometimes a little bit more if I can, but that doesn't happen very often because obviously weekends, there's housework to be done, there's various other things that I would want to be doing during that time with family and friends. So again, as I've said in previous videos, I need to either win the lottery or marry a rich man and then be able to sit at home, which would be my most ideal thing in the world, and just stitch whenever I wanted. But yeah, that's not going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. So, well, I mean, I do try to win the lottery, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. The next question is, do you use a printed paper copy or for your chart, or is it digital? I'm a digital girl through and through. I didn't used to be. So I use a mixture of, I'm trying to think what the other app I use. Bear with me while I find it. I use a mixture of Easy PDF for the Heaven and Earth designs and GoodNotes. That's the one, GoodNotes, for the rest of my other patterns, because what I'll tend to do if they're not already digital PDFs is I'll scan in. So I'll scan them in through my printer and then email it to myself and then use it through GoodNotes that way, and sort of use the highlighting facility. I do it because my eyesight isn't as good as it used to be, and it allows me to really zoom in to the pattern, particularly the Easy PDF as well when it comes to Heaven and Earth designs. I like the search functionality, so you can search for your symbols, and that's really speeded me up. So getting that last year has really made a difference to my stitching time. So I found, didn't discover it, but discovered it through YouTube probably about April time last year when I was working on one of my other HAEDs, and it just, in terms of that functionality, it just saves you missing stitches, and then, you know, finding you're having to thread your needle to go back in and just get that odd random stitch. That is massively reduced by using the digital pattern. So for me that works really, really well. I do prefer them, and unless something else comes out, like somebody's going to do the stitching for you, I will continue to use digital versions. So the next question is, are you a floss licker? Oh, absolutely, 100%. Always lick the floss. I can't thread the needle without licking the floss. I'll even lick the metallic floss in the hope that me licking on it will thread it through the needle better. It never does, obviously. I lick it all. I'll lick DMC, I'll lick the over-dyed threads, I'll lick my MPI silk, which is probably disgusting. Do I care? Couldn't give a rat's arse. I know some people pass comment and say how unhygienic it is. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm holding onto the needle, working the fabric. There is oils on my hands and I'm kind of pushing this thread and needle backwards and forwards. That you could say is unhygienic as well. If it's a large piece like this, I'm going to wash it anyhow. So, you know, I will wash out any spit residue that might be lurking around. So yeah, I really couldn't care less. If it helps me and it minimises my time in terms of getting that needle into the fabric and working it, then I'll lick my floss and you can do what you like about it. So do you hoard or buy supplies as needed? Now, I've got a little bit better in many aspects with this. Sorry, I've just missed my stitch. Let me just try and get that back up there, and there we go. Yeah, I've got a little bit better with it. I tend not to buy... Well, that's a bit of a lie, really, to be fair, isn't it? If you're thinking of like bog standard fabric, I don't buy crap tons of fabric. I don't buy crap tons of floss. I only tend to buy those things as and when I need. It's more the patterns that I tend to be a bit of a magpie for, and I am very easily enabled. So if I see somebody with a really nice whip on FlossTube, I'm quite likely to put it in my stash. So this year I am trying to minimise that a little bit because I really don't want to put more pressure on myself, really, with whips and such like. So, you know, I'm quite happy with the stuff I've got at the moment. Yeah, there's a million and one things I'd love to stitch, but, you know, do I need to? No, I probably don't. So I can't imagine me starting anything large scale this year other than kind of what I'm currently working on. So I am better from a stash perspective, but you have seen my what was in the storage box video, so you know what I've got lurking. You know there's quite a lot of patterns and projects that are currently sitting there as UFOs, which really some of them don't have a lot of work to go into that I could do, but I haven't. So, you know, slap my wrist and call me naughty, but it is what it is, isn't it? I think we're all the same. There's so many wonderful things out there in terms of designers, and a lot of stuff I wasn't even aware of until I started FlossTubes, and watching it and doing my own videos. It just kind of opens up a whole world of possibility, doesn't it? So yeah. Right, my next question is, what is your favourite floss? I don't know. I like DMC. I know that's quite a boring answer, but I do like DMC. I think it has a fabulous colour range. I like, you know, I think it's easy to work with. I think, yeah, I mean, it's my staple product, really. I mean, I've tried recently, well, more towards the back end of last year into this year, some of like the over-dyed cottons, like the Gentle Art sampler threads. They're nice. You know, I'm stitching with the MPI silks. They're friggin' expensive, but they're nice. And, you know, I mean, there's like nothing that says, oh, do you know what, I prefer this to that. I just, whatever, you know, I don't mind. I mean, the silks are nice. I mean, yeah, they are. They do work up nicely. They look pretty. You know, they do glide through the fabric nicely. But I wouldn't really say there's like anything that dominates it. I'm just happy to work with whatever's required. I think my least favourite would be the likes of Krennic or Krynic, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I find that quite difficult to work with. I find it knots very easily. It's quite rough. It tends to drag on things. Like other floss, I'm always mindful of the fact that if I'm working with Krynic, that I'm very careful next to other stitches that are already there in case it kind of snags them and pulls them. So that's probably, in terms of answering it, Flip It is my least favourite floss. Are you a serial starter, or do you have a whip at a time. I don't have a whip at a time. I have a rotation of whips that I'm working on, because if I don't do that, I'll lose my stitching bug. So if I said to myself, right, you're going to work on this project, so I'm going to work on my steam heart, and you're not allowed to do anything else until you've finished, you know, the top of a head and you've finished the 4 pages on the left hand side, I would end up giving it up because it would bore me, and you know, I wouldn't want to work on it. There'd be times I wouldn't want to, and that's how I've managed to lose my stitchy bug in the past, because it's taken a new start to sort of kickstart that enthusiasm. I know it sounds a bit strange, and maybe there's others like that, which is why when you look at my stash from years ago, I've got so many starts with non-finishes, because I've just had to go out and buy a new one in the hope that it'll generate some enthusiasm, and it usually does, and then it'll wane, and then, you know, I'll go and buy a new chart or kit or whatever I did in the past. And yeah, I suppose had I thought about rotating projects at that point, that would have probably been helpful, but I just didn't, you know. I don't know, it maybe was the done thing and I didn't know about it, or it wasn't the done thing at that time. But yeah, no, I'm a rotation girl. What's happened there? Oh, we've got like a bit of a... Oh, it's because this top part here started to fray. Let me just trim that off. There we go. Let's just get rid of that a minute. I'm surprised it's not tangled, because I'm working quite a long length, and by this point I've normally had about 10 knots in the floss, but not this time, so that's interesting. So let's have a look at this battery time. Apologies for the short stop there. I just had a look at the time for the battery, and my camera cuts off after about 29 minutes. I can't believe I've been rambling for nearly half an hour, I'm sorry. So it normally cuts itself off and I'll be chattering away and then realise it hasn't recorded me, which is probably a blessing for you guys. Let's have a look. Do you have more FFOs or UFOs? Oh, UFOs without a shadow of a doubt. Which is a bit of a shame. And you have seen them all. And as I said, some of them are quite close to being finished, but I just haven't managed to get round to them or back into them yet. And yeah, I might. You never know. You never know. Do you watch TV while you're stitching? Absolutely. I'll watch whatever I've missed during the week, because as you know, sometimes I'm away with work. What I like doing is, if there's like a TV series on in the UK, like they'll do like, I don't know, a series that are split over 6 weeks and are maybe an hour long, and the broadcast them about 9 o'clock on an evening for an hour, and then you get like a 6-parter, so it'll last for 6 weeks. I like to save them, so I'll record them and then I'll watch it, like not straight off, but I'll watch it maybe over 2 sittings, because I don't like being kept in suspense, really. So I'd rather, like the box sets, you know, just kind of watch the whole lot, so you're not sort of sat there thinking, oh my god, like I can't wait for next week to see it. So I tend to do that. But yeah, I always watch TV. So if there's nothing on my like regular Sky, and I do have Virgin as well, not that I'm a telly addict, but I did have a Sky package, the story, and it had the most horrendous broadband speed known to man. It would take usually 2 days to upload a video to FlossTube. That's how bad it was. And then Virgin Media came with a really great offer for broadband and their TV package. So I thought, well, actually, if I reduce my service on my Sky, I'll be able to take both without it costing me any more, because when I go to the static, I have a Sky dish over there, so you know I'm able to still record Sky channels, but obviously because there's no cable over there, then I wouldn't be able to do that with Virgin Media. So it was just because the deal with Virgin was the same for having the TV and the broadband, so I thought I might as well have it. So yeah, if there's nothing on that, then you know I'm straight onto Netflix to catch up with that. So I've just finished watching The Crown. I know I'm a bit behind with everything, but yeah, I've been watching The Crown, so I was quite gutted when that finished. I did enjoy that. Ew, That's what they say when something has happened that displeases them. Ew. So, yeah, I defy anybody to watch The Crown and then not start speaking with a false, very aristocratic British accent. So, next one. Do you mostly stitch alone? Or have you ever got together with someone to stitch? Well, usually I'm alone. But I did obviously go to the retreat, as you know, and stitch with people there, which was nice. But obviously by default, I got absolutely naff all stitching done while I was there. My first stitching experience, my friend who got me into stitching years ago, we would stitch together. She was living at home with her parents at the time, and I would go around and see her on an evening, and I'd take my first project, which was, I don't know whether you remember, it's the Lunate girl seated with dog, and I'd stitch with her. I'm going to flip this and end the thread now, so I'm trying not to knock the camera. So, yes, I used to go and stitch with her, but like over the years, I haven't. You know, I've done it pretty much on my own, really. I mean, I've set various family members off with it, so my sister cross stitches sometimes, so she'll do a bit of stitching. We tried with my mum, so I went and bought her one of the Dimensions Gold kits, which I suppose for me, I just dive in and probably pick one of the more complex pieces, where my mum, yeah, she struggled massively with it. And it wasn't because she couldn't do it, it was just probably a little bit ambitious with her just setting out, and yeah, it really put her off. So I'm a bit disappointed in myself that her first experience of stitching and cross stitch and needlework wasn't very good, and it's put her off because she won't do it again. So yeah, so it tends to be alone because there's nobody who I know who does this. So yeah, I'm a bit of a lone stitcher. What's next? Do you like to experiment and alter things with your charts, or do you stitch them just as written? Now, I tend to be quite loyal to the charts, just because I'm just not very creative when it comes to switching things up. Sorry, I'm just switching this again, just so I can just fasten this in. So with it being one-stranded, I'm doing kind of a lasso method of catching the stitch. So I don't even know if you'll be able to see this because I don't think I can zoom in that far, but kind of leave a bit poking out of the back and then try and manoeuvre it, which I have done now, and catch it under that loop so it's sitting there. Over we go. Oh, sorry. Let me line you back up. I'm sorry. I was giving you a right bloody smack. Sorry. I hope that's all right and you can still see. So the only chart really that I can think of recently where I did try to, just checking that's all right and it's lined up. Yeah, it's okay. Make changes to it was the giant Harry Potter sampler. So I kind of went in and thought, I don't really like the yellow, you know, the canary yellow shade that was in it. I thought that looks a bit, I just wasn't keen on it. So I thought, oh, I know, I'll put some gold DMC silk in there, you know, the satin. And then, you know, when something just gets a bit of a life of its own and everything you try to change it. So I was putting like, when I was stitching the owl, I was trying to like blend some Krennic into it, and it just ended up looking a bit meh, to be fair. So it's ended up in my UFO pile, probably waiting to be started again with actually what floss was originally charted on it, because the more changes I tried to make to it, the more I ended up having to do, and then it didn't really stand out from the fabric either. So that's why I started trying to blend with stuff that might make it stand out. And it just ended up being a bit of a disaster, to be fair. And it was causing me more brain power and thought than anything. But I mean, I must admit, I do admire anybody who can, you know, like the Nora Corbett conversions, go in and completely switch the colours out. I'm trying to think what she's called. Is it the Evergreen Needle or the Evergreen Stitcher? Kelly. Oh, God, she does the most amazing conversions. I mean, she turned Nora Corbett's red into like a green colour. She changed the Raven Queen and made her into Charlize Theron out of, what was it, the Huntsman, or the Huntsman, or the Winter of Huntsman, or something like that, you know, where she's all in gold, the Queen. Oh my God, it was just spectacular. She's done is it at the Met, where she's made her look like an Egyptian queen. Oh my God. So when it comes to things like that, no, I mean, when I've struggled with Harry Potter Giant Sampler, the expectations on me doing anything really creative are probably next to nothing. So no, I'm pretty true to the charts, to be fair. Do you bobbinate, floss, or not? Well, I used to bobbinate, and I didn't really mind it until I started the Heaven and Earth designs. And when you've got like 89, 91 colours to bobbinate, and all you want to do is actually dive into the stitching, that became more of a problem for me, and I stopped it. So what I use a lot of now are the FlossAway bags. And if I'm stitching a particularly large Heaven and Earth design like this one, I'll actually put a piece of paper within the bag and then draw the symbol on as well. So I can search via the symbol, which makes it easier than having to look for the colour of the floss. And then all I literally need to do is bung the skein into the bag, and I don't have to spend like, I don't know, 5 minutes per skein winding it onto a bobbin. So that's what I'm doing more of now. And then obviously the FlossAway bags have like the little hole in, so I thread them onto the big massive metal rings and just hang them off various parts of the stand, really, that I'm using to rest whatever frame I'm working with on. So that tends to be more of how I roll now. It's less time consuming, and I just, you know, when I've looked at some of my older floss stash from years ago, where it looks a little bit grubby now, I feel as though I'm handling it a little bit less, and I don't know whether that's true or not, or it's just me. But yeah, because I haven't wound it on and got my, you know, greasy sticky mitts all over it in the first instance, and then I'm not sort of winding it back off and then winding it back on as I finish with that particular shade. So maybe that is the case. I am handling it a little bit less, so it might stay a little bit cleaner. I don't know, but for me it was more of a time thing doing it that way than anything else. The next question is, do you start a project in the middle of your fabric or at the corner? Well, that depends on what it is. If it's a Heaven and Earth design or a larger project, I tend to go for the top left, because that tends to be the way that they set out the patterns on the PDF anyway. So I'll usually start the likes of this. The Christmas ornament, the other Heaven and Earth, because it was on a circular, I started in the middle at the top. Now if it's a smaller project, like, I don't know, like my Harry Potter Marauders map, for example, which is one of the Clouds Factory designs, I started that in the middle and I stitched Harry first, and then followed with the two Weasley brothers, and then started with the footprints around the edge. So it varies, to be honest. If it's a mirror, I would probably start in the middle and work my way out from that. So yeah, it very much depends on the project, but there's no set pattern and there's no right and wrong, is there? It's just a bit of personal preference and what you might want to do. Do you have a whip rotation? Yes, I do, and you've seen that through other videos. And as I said before, I find that I'm more interested to stitch. I don't lose my stitchy bug, and I haven't lost my stitchy bug in over 18 months now at all. I've kept my interest high because there's all sorts of different things that I'm stitching, working on different fabrics, sometimes different floss, and that's making a difference to me in terms of my ability to stick with things. Do you use a timekeeper or keep track of how long it takes you to complete a project? I do, and as I said, I have been meaning to do an upload of this. I use an app which I have on my iPad, which is called Now Then Pro. There is a version of it where you don't have to pay, where you can have up to 15 projects on there. You can use it for, you know, timing craft things like this, or, you know, you could use it as like an organiser for your life in terms of how long you spend doing various events or different activities that you're doing. So I really like it, and I will do like a video on how I work with it, but that's very accurate, so it keeps proper time. It's got a proper timer on it, and it tells you exactly how many hours and minutes you've worked on something so far. So I really do like to know. I don't know what it is about me, but yeah, literally to the minute, I like to know how long certain things have taken me. I suppose just so you can look back and think, wow. Also a good way of keeping track of when you started stuff as well. There's a question here about using the parking technique. As you know, I don't. I've already explained that earlier. Do you keep your arts? No, I don't. I've got a little bit better at storing them now. When I got my necessaire stand, there was this like little wooden pot that I now put my arts into as I go. Other than that, I used to leave them all over the place, so they'd end up on the carpet. I'd initially start with them on the little side table that's next to me where I have my coffee and things like that, and then Daisy would come and take from the table. She likes to eat cotton, and she would either eat it or she would spread it all over the floor. So it got to the point where really it was untidy. There's more of it wrapped around the brush in my Hoover, my vacuum cleaner, than probably anything else. So yeah, it's not ideal. But yes, I'm using this like little wooden pot now to put them in, and then they'll go into the bin. So I don't use them to stuff smalls and things like that, or keep them, as some people do. Some people put them into beautiful fancy jars and things, so they'll keep a year of arts together. I could do, but then that would be just more things lying around, and you know, for me, I'm not really that bothered about the leftovers. Do you like to have a snack or drink while you're stitching? Try not to snack too much. I do snack and then I'll go and wash my hands. Drinking, I do. I really like my coffee, and then obviously soft drinks on an evening. I tend not to drink that much alcohol, to be fair, anyway, so there's never a case where I've got a glass of red wine in my stitching on a frame in front of me, because I just don't really drink that much alcohol anyway. But coffee, yes, I do. I do try to be careful with it. Touch wood, I haven't spilt any coffee on a design yet. Not to say I won't. So yeah, I do. But the eating, you know, I'll maybe eat sweets or something and not wash my hands in between, but things like crisps that are a little bit greasy, then, you know, I will go off and wash my hands as well. So that was the end of Pam's tag, and I'll just do one more, which is a bit shorter, which was published in August 2016 by Covered in Cat Hair. And she asked, when you're putting a project together, do you choose the pattern first or the fabric? And I think I've kind of alluded to this before, haven't I? It's always the pattern. I'll always choose what project I want to stitch and then match the fabric to it. I don't do it the other way around, and that's why I don't have a lot of these hand-dyed fabrics and things like that, and I'm looking for something to go on a particular shade. It's more about the project and the fabric for me. Not that that might not change, but yeah, as I said, I haven't gotten down the hand-dyed fabric hole yet. Do you ever find yourself limiting or denying yourself new starts because of your current number of whips? Yeah. There are at least 6 Heaven and Earth designs that I could start in a heartbeat. And I know it's a hobby and you shouldn't deny yourself anything, because this is one of my few pleasures in life, but you know, I could start them and I'll just never get anything finished, or it'll just be like 3-4 years down the line before I have a finish. So I try to be sensible. I do start, because I started working on some more smaller designs, so I can start a new one now because one of them has gone out of my whip rotation, which I will show you next week when I do my monthly update. So yeah, I can start another one now, but I mean, my favourite stuff is Heaven and Earth designs. I just love them. They take forever, but oh my god, the results are amazing. So that is that. Is there any designer or style of pattern that you love the designs but hate the process of stitching on them? It's not the process of stitching on them, and I've spoken about this in my previous videos anyway. I love mirabilias, but I find the paper patterns an absolute nightmare to deal with, and I've told you about this before. So some people have come back with some great suggestions in terms of how I can work better with them in terms of scanning and printing and blowing things up. I know why they don't put them onto PDFs, I totally get it. It's to protect their copyright and their, the designer's interest, because once it goes onto PDF, then it's pretty much up for grabs for free with some unscrupulous people who share files. But it would be great if I could work on GoodNotes or Goodreader or something with it and just make it bigger, because in the years ago when I used to stitch more of them, my eyes were better, so the tiny symbols on the patterns, because they are tiny, were okay. I could see them without wearing glasses. Now I just can't see them. It makes it really, really hard for me to work on them, which is why I just don't do very many mirabilias and Nora Corbett's. My Electra Bewitching Pixie was okay because the pattern wasn't spread over multiple pages, and I could scan it. I found it relatively okay to scan. It wasn't perfect, but I could work my way around it. Plus the symbols were a bit bigger than the usual ones because it's a smaller design. But yeah, the larger ladies, the mermaids, to be honest, to me it's a lot more hassle than it's worth, so I tend not to do them when I probably would do more, but it is what it is. What do you use, if anything, to keep track of your current whips and or future starts? So we've talked about my Now Then Pro timekeeping app. I also downloaded ages ago the Cross Stitch app. If you don't have it, I would highly recommend having that. I can't remember whether it was free or whether or not it was like a nominal amount for it, but it's so good because you can put all the projects in that you've got kitted up. Your starts, when you've started them, you can keep an eye on your dates when you finish them. You can also put all of your stash in there, an inventory of your stash, so your fabrics, all of your threads, flosses, you name it. So yeah, I like that to give me an idea of the time I started it, and then I'll make a note within that app of how many hours it's taken me to do the project when it's finished. So I've always got a digital record of when that was done. So yeah, so it's between the Now Then Pro and the Cross Stitch app that I keep track of everything really, in terms of starts and finishes and projects kitted. And finally, if you could steal any FlossTuber's current whip or past project, which one would it be and why? So it would be a Heaven and Earth design without... Hang on a minute, what have I done here? I looked away when I was putting that thread through. I have no idea what's happened. Don't know. Let me just backpick it. Oh lordy. Here we go. I think it's got caught on something. It's done something weird. Just push that through. I think it's the floss, it's maybe split a bit. Right, I'm just going to lick my floss, bear with me. Dirty, dirty. To thread my needle. So it would be Heaven and Earth design. One of my favourite designs currently, and I do have the pattern in my stash, and I almost started it, and then I chose this one because it's by the same artist. Sorry, not enough spit on my floss. Judge me, I don't care. It's going through my needle better. There we are, I'm back in the game. So it was a Cris Ortega piece, and it is Ex Machina or Machina, depending on how you pronounce it. I think it's actually Ex Machina, isn't it? There's a few people who are stitching it at the moment. I know one of them, one of the ladies who I watch is called Davina. Her FlossTube channel is Mamula Stitches. It's wonderful. So I was going to start it, and then I thought, well, do you know what? There's everybody's working on that one at the moment, because it does feature quite heavily as well on the Facebook Heaven and Earth Design group as well. I thought, I know, I'm going to do this one, which is a little bit different. It's obviously, it's not the sister piece, but they're both steampunk designs anyway. I would take that off her hands in a heartbeat. I love it. And I will stitch it. I will plan to stitch that in at some point, probably more so when I've either finished this or got very close to finishing it. I love it. It's pretty much kitted up and ready to go when I'm ready to go. But yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. But you know, it's a full coverage piece, and it'll take a long time, and you know, like the rest of them, they're all amazing, aren't they? So it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, that's probably what I would sort of take from her, I think. So, but yeah. Oh, my floss has snapped. That's interesting. I think it was on its way out earlier. But I'm going to finish that bit off, but in terms of the Stitch With Me video, I've gone through the 2 tags, so I'm pretty much done now anyway. So I'm planning for the rest of the day to, the Olympics are on, the Winter Olympics. I started watching a little bit of it this morning. I'm going to, I think I'm going to do some knitting. I'm finishing, or trying to finish my hat off. I showed it in my latest update. I'm not going to flip that, I will in a minute. So I'm going to go and do some knitting. I've got some housework to do, so I'm going to get that over and done with, and then I might come back to some stitching later today. But for now, I'm going to love you and leave you, because I'm just about to flip this over and finish it at the back, and I'll only knock the camera again, so it's not worth it. But essentially, I've gone through the two tags anyway, so I hope this was okay in terms of visibility and being able to see what I've been doing. I have managed to get, oh, I don't know, a fair few stitches, maybe 100 stitches in there while I've been chatting away to you, so that's taken a bit of a load off what there is left to do with that. So I wish you a really great weekend, and I'll catch up with you in my update at the end of the month. I'll also be back on the 20th, because I've got the draw to do from my previous upload. I did, for those of you who haven't watched it, a giveaway, so that's still up for grabs if people are still interested. There's still a couple more days for you to go on and express interest in that, but there's been a great response to that, so I need to collate all of the results as well today and get a list going, so I can use the random number generator next week to award the giveaway. So I hope everybody's well and stay warm as well. I think the weather's still not great here in the UK, and I will catch up with you in a few days. Take care, bye.